So we're back with another episode of Pain Points, and we're breaking down content that's kind of happened throughout the week, new pieces of information and insight as it relates to entrepreneurship, business, so on and so forth. So we got a couple different videos we're going to queue up, maybe some articles and things we're going to talk about like we kind of do every single week on this pod. But Darius, man, I'll let you tee it up.
Yeah, we got 2 articles today and another video, but this time we'll actually have the audio clip.
Okay, cool.
And so the first article is about Bud Light. Now, we know Bud Light has been in the news quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
So it's not we're not piling on to anything, but I want to read an article and we're going to talk about reputation management.
Okay.
Then next, we'll touch on leadership in light of the Ocean Gate submersible going down.
Brutal.
Yeah. So real quick. So this article comes courtesy of Intrapreneur magazine and written by Madeline Garfinkel on the 23rd of June. She says, over the past 3 months, Bud Light has lost billions in sales and market value. Revenue was down by 26.8% for the week of June 10 compared to the year prior. But here's the thing. On Thursday, I'm skipping ahead in our article. On Thursday, Bud Light released a new television commercial titled Easy to Summer, set to the 1979 hit song Good Times by Chic. And she says this ad is just a fraction of the broader campaign that Bud Light's parent company, Anheuser-Busch, is putting out to boost engagement and sales, calling it Bud Light's biggest summer campaign ever. The company is launching a Bud Light Backyard Tour, which will headline country music singers Tyler Braden and Seaforth. Bud Light is also working with NFL stars such as Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Dak Prescott, who will be featured in content in the upcoming season. As a part of the campaign, here's the kicker, Anheuser-Busch is also giving away $10,000 a week, offering rebates over the 4th of July weekend and holding a contest to win $100 off a bar tab. We want to show up in all relevant occasions this summer. Backyard barbecues, stadiums, and sports venues, the vice president of Bud Light said. Allen added that Anheuser-Busch has more than tripled its already weighty media investment behind Bud Light. So I bring this article up because they're trying to regain, they're trying to reputation management.
Yeah. I would actually call it more PR than reputation management. But I hate that term, reputation management.
I know. It probably comes just from our experiences.
Yeah, in the agency world.
Yeah.
But
I think the interesting thing to note, what I want to get your opinion on is maybe when you make a big mistake, how do you begin to get on track again as a leader, as heading up an organization? You know, they didn't foresee this happening. Maybe they did, but but they didn't foresee this happening.
Wow.
And now they're overcorrecting to a degree, right? We got NFL players, we got country music stars, we giving away money at this point, on top of our already nearly 30% revenue loss the year prior. But this is going to get us for the biggest summer ever.
The thing that's just resonating with me is they always say trust is like a forest, years to build and seconds to burn it down. And so it's going to be a slow recovery for them. That ain't going to be forgotten very quickly. Yeah. Unless, of course, they're trying to completely pivot their product line to the whole DEI community, I guess.
Well, it seems like they're backpedaling from that. I mean,
yeah, because I watched the CU spring game, which was one of the few nationally televised games. Go Buffs. I see you, Dion. And it was really bad. It was strikingly obvious that they were trying to regain their man card. They weren't playing Bud Light. They were playing Budweiser. And it was like Cowboys. And we like to drink beer and we're hard working and drive trucks. And that's what the commercial was like. I'm like, this is like 4 days after the Bud Light debacle. And I'm like, man, this is so obvious. I don't think their clientele is that stupid.
Right.
I mean, you can see it when you walk through the stores. You can see it when you go to the stadiums. All the lines are full except for that line. So I don't know. It's a PR move, and it's gonna take them longer than they think to try to recover from it.
I think the interesting thing to note is if you're looking at society as a whole, how often we don't just say, "Hey, I messed up."
Yeah. Own it.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because like you're taking these measures, but if I was just happen to be on the Anheuser-Busch team, I would say maybe we should actually put out some content that actually says, "Hey, we realized we were tripping."
Yeah, I mean, that's typically the fastest way to
yeah.
regain trust is to just extreme accountability, right?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the lesson to take away for someone who is leading an organization. Maybe you haven't been the best leader, right? You haven't
Yeah.
been, maybe you've been operating far below your own standard as the decision maker in the organization.
Yeah, that's actually great. I had got a haircut with my barber a couple weeks ago. He took over a salon, which he had never managed a salon before. He was a successful, independent, single producer. And we were talking about hiring. He was having hiring challenges. And I was saying like, hey man, you got to treat hiring a lot like a marketing campaign, right? You really got to recruit talent, and then you got to be an A player. Like you got to go after A players. And so he read a book I recommended to him called Who, which talks about A players, and A players want to work for A players. And he said to me, man, when I took over this business, I was not an A player. And so as a byproduct, my A players left. And so I was just like commended him like, hey, that's incredible that you can recognize that, but you learn from it. And so you go do it. So learn from it, own it, and then move on. And I think that's Bud Light's missing that. And it's probably because it's such a large corporation, like the people who actually make those decisions, because at a certain point within the organization, the decision-making gets delegated as well. Yeah. Right. And so I'm just wondering if that's what's going on.
Yeah. I think the other thing to note on top of that is where a culture, say that in any organization, where there's a culture or team or even a family where there is no apologizing happening or forgiving or owning up to anything, then you actually have an organization, a team, a family where no one's accountable.
Yeah.
Because
very unhealthy.
Because you won't apologize for anything unless you're accountable to the results of the work of your hands, or in this case, the media you put out. So where you don't see someone acknowledging that they did something wrong, you see someone who's actually not operating under accountability.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's interesting.
I mean, I agree, because I come from a family where we just brushed everything under the rug. And like you could have a SmackDown drag out, and the next day you're just like eating cereal together and like pretending like nothing happened. You just told me to kick rocks last night and pack my shit, you know?
But over time, what that does though is that drastically changes whatever you're a part of, right?
Yeah, the culture, the dynamic, because people will just end up shutting up, and they lose the buy-in to try to make the place better.
Yeah.
I'll just shut up. I'll just take my paycheck, and I won't cause any waves, which means they're already halfway out the door. I mean, better opportunity comes, they're gone.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's shift gears to the next one. I really wanted to hit on that one because
culture.
It's okay to make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay to make a mistake. And we're so afraid of that. Even our conversation this morning, right?
Yeah.
Like we're so afraid of making a mistake. I make mistakes all the time with my kids and my wife, and it's good for them to see you say, Papa messed up.
Yeah.
Hey, VP of marketing, I messed up. Our brand isn't actually dying. I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that. All right. So the second article. So you followed a little bit of what happened over the last week with the submersible.
Sad.
Very sad story. Well, as I was watching the coverage, one of the things that stood out to me, not the conspiracy theories or we're being distracted by this. What actually stood out to me the most was the fact that the CEO, Stockton Rush, he was also the creator of the vessel. He reportedly ignored so many warnings from the community of people doing what he did that ultimately played a role in this doomed trip. And so I want to read an article that just covers it a little bit. It comes courtesy of Newsweek. I have two of them, but I'll do the Newsweek one. It says, OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush was warned about the potentially catastrophic outcome of ignoring safety concerns years before his Titan submersible was reported lost during a dive to visit the wreckage of the Titanic. Rush and 4 other occupants on the 22-foot vessel were reported missing. We know ultimately they did pass. But here's the thing. David Lockridge, a former OceanGate employee and submersible pilot, filed a lawsuit against the company in 2018, alleging that the passengers were subjected to potential extreme danger in an experimental submersible due to OceanGate's refusal to conduct critical, non-destructive testing of the experimental design of the hull. The suit was later settled out of court.
That guy was real opinionated until he got a certain check size that he said, oh, okay, not my problem anymore.
Yes.
His values went right out the window.
That is so, man, that's another, that's good. I'm just going to jump over to this other article just because someone says something. They say, we all told him someone was going to be killed in this thing, and you've got to not do it. So that comes by way of Newsweek and an ABC Live article. But for me, watching that, as I think about entrepreneurship, as I think about the intrapreneur who wants to transition to becoming an entrepreneur, the one thing at least I've noticed around being around successful entrepreneurs over the last few years is there is an air of humility. And when you're pioneering like this gentleman was doing, he was pioneering. He was trying to set out to do something a little bit different in terms of how he built the vessel, the materials used. He was going against protocol. But I think I guess what I want to touch on and get your opinion on is the danger of pride.
It's a fine balance.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you got to have a little bit of an ego to get out there and think that you can do something, right? Otherwise, that's why I like, people who are like really uncertain as they're getting started early. Somebody will bring something up and challenge it and they just melt. They just fall apart, right? So they don't have enough of an ego, but there is having too much to the point of where it becomes prideful, right? Yeah. So confidence versus cockiness, but it's in everything that you do, people are going to call you crazy. So I'm not even sure what the balance is other than you got to have a place, a circle that you go to where you can step outside of your own echo chamber and get some real feedback from people that you trust who aren't your employees, right? Because you think your employees, you don't know, I'm the visionary, look what I built, right? And so, eventually it's kind of the same thing as the Bud Light thing, right? It's like you build an audience and you listen to content and feedback that only supports your point of view, and you just kind of drown out everything else until something bad happens, and then you go, oh, maybe I should listen, So that's definitely a risk. I mean, I think you have to have an ego to be a successful entrepreneur, but the detriment is when it becomes pride.
I think the interesting thing to note is, so these were people within his community. So it's the equivalent of peers who are doing what you do and care about the same things that you care about. So I think there's a lesson there for the entrepreneur and for us of, there is a balance, but everybody can't be wrong. Like everyone that is in my community doing the same things, has the same values per se, is saying pump the brakes a little bit. And I'm kind of saying, I think I'm going to go forward a little bit.
Yeah. Which I get. It's it's a little bit of a balance, right?
Yeah.
But I think that becomes more of a challenge when you view those peers as competitors. Because then it's like, well, they're trying to, deter me from my success or whatever it might be. So, I think if you do it done right, there's plenty of space in the market for everybody to eat and win. And so you can leverage those people to probably create a better product. But yeah, I get it when you're doing something crazy like he was doing, revolutionizing. Just look at like the old Apollo, was it Apollo 12 or 11? The one that blew up, you know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit crazy. We're like sending a rocket ship to outer space,
Yeah.
And somebody died, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. The irony there is that, people have been saying that it's kind of like the whole Titanic thing too. Ironically, the same spot. But that person who was captaining that ship had warnings also from his community, from his peers, people who do the same thing and value the same things. So
I wonder what the pressure was for him to just like keep pushing ahead, right? Like, was he feeling like there was some sort of
paying back that lawsuit settlement?
You only need a couple trips at 250 a head.
I know. I think before we move on to the video, I think an interesting point to note is you pointed out the guy who was pushing the settlement and then backed off. At what point, I can't ask, I'm not asking you this personally, but I think it is interesting that people say everyone has a number. That, as an entrepreneur, I guess maybe let me ask you as an entrepreneur, do you have a number like that would you would say, all right, I'm out. You know, if someone comes to you like,
Yeah, but I think we're talking about like a moral compass.
yeah, we are. And that's hard. I don't know how to frame it up exactly, but I don't want to skip over that observation because a lot of times we read these articles and things and you can skip over and something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think in that guy's case, you know, he maybe started out genuinely concerned, but also maybe it sounds like maybe a little bit jealous. Because if you were genuinely concerned, then the money would be like, wouldn't matter, be obsolete. So there was clearly a number that was like enough for him to be like, well, not my problem, you know? And so, yeah, I don't know. So that's more of a moral issue.
Yeah. It's interesting how people, you know, come out after the fact.
I'll put it like this. You couldn't have paid me $10 million to go inside that thing. Your boy is claustrophobic. I would have probably died from a panic attack.
Dude, they couldn't stand up.
No.
They couldn't stand up in the thing at all.
Nope.
3 days?
No, sir.
They had a little toilet. Did you see how, I don't know if you saw this, but they had like a little video game controller?
I saw that. I wonder if it lasted 3 days though. Because
it didn't.
Like it was pretty much instantaneous. The reason they couldn't find it because it was gone. It was imploded into a bunch of pieces, right? Yeah. They said the pressure was like 375 times like what it would take to just implode something at like sea level. And so the heat produced off of that was like 5 times the heat off the layer of the sun. Like it was intense. So it was instantaneous. So they probably didn't have to experience the drawn out turmoil of just being stuck down there. But yeah, there is not a number that would have put me in there.
Dude, it's funny. I've thought about it. Like, would I go? If I'm like 70, 80, maybe I'll go, but not right now. But
yeah,
not right now.
It's probably true. Yeah.
Not right now.
But then you'd be 80, you come out the other side, like $1 billion. You're like, great. And you just can't even enjoy it because you're just an old fart.
Yeah, man. Well, either way, I think there is a lesson there of just like, hey, be confident. Be confident. And
your peers don't have to be competitors, and you should probably try to work like with them to really pioneer like an industry.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yes.
The default position is competition instead of collaboration, community.
Yep. When
we probably could actually revolutionize this thing.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good note. All right, well let's check out this clip. So this third pain point is a clip that comes courtesy of our guy Alex Hormozy, who we appreciate the work he does. But I came across this clip. It's part of a bigger presentation that he put out on his Mosey Media channel. But I'm going to start it about 30 minutes in. He's talking about the concept of more, better, new to entrepreneurs, to people trying to actually get over the hump and build a good business.
As soon as we figure out that we have the highest strategic leverage activity that we can in a business, we then ask ourselves, can we just do more? Why can't we do more? I want to do more. More money. Let's do that. More. Right? Or we say, can we do it better? We don't have to invest any new resources, just do it better. We're going to go from calling leads in 30 minutes to calling leads in under 5. Deal? Fantastic. Once we do all the mores and all the betters, then and only then do we do new. Now, here's how most small business owners decide what they're going to do. Oh, there we go. All right.
He's scribbling across a whiteboard for you guys listening.
And the thing is a lot of you guys are going to come back from here with lots of new. You're going to be like, hey, team, I'm going to vomit all over you. I'm going to make no plan. It's going to be awesome. And they're just going to be like, let's give it a week. He'll forget about all the things he said, and we'll go back to normal. Real talk. It's going to happen. Gym launch, since we sold it to whatever-ish years ago, whatever the time was, 2021. I'm so proud of Kale and the team because they consistently ask, thank you, how can we do more of what we're doing? How can we do it better? Gym launch has grown 40% since Alex and Layla exited the majority share. We still own 30+% of it. But
consistency.
And I think in a lot of ways, Kale's a better CEO than I am because I also like new shiny things too. But Kale is super disciplined. He's an exceptional CEO. There's a lot to learn from him. How can I do more? How can I do it better? So it's like, hey, dude, I think we should be getting on TikTok. He's like, you know what we could also do? We'd fucking double our cold call team. Do that. What if we do that? What's the likelihood that if we double our cold call team, we'll make more sales? High. We already have a trodden path there. Let's just do more of that. But what about TikTok? Yeah. Likelihood that we're going to get sales? I don't know. We've never done it before. I don't know. But what about this kid I saw on the internet? He's making millions. Let's just double our cold call team. And then let's look at our better and say, like, do you think we can clean the numbers more? Do you think we can improve the script? Do you think we can follow up faster? Do you think we can personalize the reach outs more? Probably. And so right now, this is real. The thing that is killing most of you guys is the desire to 10x in 90 days and then not doing it and trying something new and hoping for a silver bullet that never comes. It's 100 golden BBs. Like the big businesses, it's just golden BBs. It's just improving lots of little things over and over again. The 40% improvement that Jim Welch has had since we sold our majority share there's been no one thing. And man, wouldn't I love to make that short video. There isn't one thing. We just improved a lot of little things. And that creates the big outcome. And so right now, you probably have...
I'll stop it there because we could watch the whole thing.
It's a good video. Could we put that in the show notes?
Yes.
People can watch it.
Absolutely. But this notion of more, better, new, unsuccessful entrepreneurs, businesses that never become large businesses, worrying about the new instead of more of what's working and what works and what has historically worked and doing that better.
Yeah. I think when you look back, you generally see that you did a bunch of stuff and there's really only like a handful of things that truly made you successful. I think one of the challenges for entrepreneurs is, and maybe human beings in general, is we're just wired for novelty. Mm-hmm. So when the novelty wears off, the newness wears off. Because you know, first 90 days is like super exciting. This is great. This is going really well. And then there's the next, 6 to 12 months where it's hard, right? Because you get exponential growth when you kind of kick off and then it doesn't quite work anymore. And that's where the real discipline kicks in. And the importance of having clarity about like, where am I going? What do I need to get done in 3 years to be on pace for that? What do we got to do in the next, year? What do we got to do in the next 90 days? What are the most important measurables that I should be focused on day in and day out? And then tweaking that and tweaking that and tweaking that and optimizing and optimizing and optimizing until you really start to get scale and breakthrough. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's right. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and something's not working, you really want to try to take it into your own hands. So it requires a clear strategy and a clear timeline for like, hey, we're just going to keep going on this path. I mean, it's the same thing with this podcast, right?
Right.
We've just constantly improved. More, better, right? How do we put out more shorts? How do we create more content? How do we create a better platform, a better ecosystem?
Look at the studio, right?
Yeah, exactly. How do we create a better visual experience, right? How do we get more reach than we're already doing on the platforms we're already on? Not trying to expand across more platforms, right? Because a little early days, we did do that, right? So now we've just kind of really narrowed it in. Like I have my 2 personal platforms. We focus on the podcast channel, the newsletter, and the YouTube. And then Samson grows his personal channels. We grow our personal channels on the back of that.
So today.
Yeah.
So guys.
But that's good. I love that. I mean, it's a good, one of the things about Alex that I always appreciate is he's good at distilling things down, making them simple.
Yes.
Right. And so, yeah, it's a lot of little things that add up over time. That's why we generally overestimate what we can do in a year and undervalue 3 years of doing that. I mean, I think Alex will tell you he started an AI bot company, a supplement company, a ton of other things along the way. Marketing agency for dentists. Yeah. And so he had a little bit of that shiny object syndrome.
He said it too. He said it like.
Yeah. So I know maybe the question is like, what is that point when you put in a CEO who's not you as the founder entrepreneur to run the company?
What do you think is that point?
I don't know. And that maybe goes back to what we were talking about before, the pride and the ego.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the right person for this anymore.
I wonder if you could, could you put in markers in place within your system that can become a sort of lagging indicator that, okay, if this consistently happens over here, I need to check myself if I'm still the guy to be leading this thing.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I
mean, if you think about like, every Fortune 500 company has 8 typically 8 C-level executives: CEO, CFO, COO,
Yeah.
CGO, sales
CTO.
officer, service officer,
Right.
product officer, marketing officer. And if they're software, they probably have a chief technology officer or something like that. And that's really like you've delegated all the decision making, like in that core function of the business. So maybe that's a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you grow out to a certain point, and what's the next layer? You know?
Yeah.
How do you get to the next echelon, and how do you delegate those decisions so that you can start making higher level decisions? So
yeah, that's good. I think one of the things that I think about when I'm listening to a piece of content like that and just thinking about overall in business is social media. I think, and let's just say in the last 12 years, social media has sort of piled on a lot of things onto entrepreneurship,
yeah,
onto business. But when you start picking up books that are maybe from the 80s, 90s, even some from the 70s, you see, wait a minute, there's actually not a lot of varying degrees of difference
yeah,
between what they're saying makes a successful business in the 80s and the 90s and so on, early 2000s. And I think in this media wave of age that we're in, where it's just so much, I think it fuels that novelty, that search for new, because you're constantly getting a new post. You're constantly getting a new feed, a new email, a new thing, when it's like, well, actually, there's some time-tested things about why people buy.
Yeah, that's good.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up being too tactical and not very strategic. Of, oh, here's the new tool, so let me try that. You know, let's try this next tool or try this next platform or this new thing, and that's going to be the breakthrough that we need. But strategy requires you to be disciplined and to actually validate or challenge whether or not that fits within the current strategy. It doesn't mean you can't change in the future, but if you're constantly changing course in the middle of a sprint on 90 days, that can really mess you up, you know? So sometimes it's just better to say, hey, that's good. Put it on the ideas list. We'll talk about it next quarter.
That's good.
Shiny object syndrome is real.
It is. I mean, I changed my phone yesterday. I changed the filter on my phone, the screen, just for not shiny object syndrome, but just the notion of constantly seeing things, constantly hearing things. Like, got to do something about that.
Yeah. I mean, lately, I don't need a new car, but lately I've been thinking about a new truck. And I'm like, why am I thinking about a new truck? You know what I mean? So it's like you wrestle with that.
And that truck you have is sweet.
I know, it's super sweet. There's literally nothing wrong with it other than like I want to be able to just throw like some dirt in the back of a truck. It's a drive a nice Yukon. And like I maybe do that once a year, but
That's good. That's
so
a
it's
good
just it's a stupid reason, but it's true. We're wild for novelty. So you're constantly having to like reframe your paradigms as an entrepreneur to navigate through that of like pushing that novelty off, you know, and like why am I craving that thing? Like maybe there's another area of my life that I need to tighten up, you know, or clean up or whatever it might be.
So then let me leave our listeners with this then. Whether it's in your business or in your personal life, your health, you have the things that work. That work, that align to what you believe to be true, good, and beautiful. Do more of that.
Yeah, consistently.
Do it better.
Yep.
And for now, don't worry about the new.
Good. All right. Well, until next time.
Until next time, guys.
Pain points. Peace out.